Marshall, great to see you.
Good to see you.
And I wanted to start by talking about how I came to create this course, because you have been one of the great influences for me in creating this course.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Thank you. I think I can thank you more than you can thank me on this one. And I want to tell you how I came to create the course, and maybe you could comment on it as I describe what I went through.
Sure.
So about 10 years ago, I finished business school. And in business school, I took some leadership classes, which were tremendous for me. I learned a lot. Although I also learned that when I went out in the world, I would say walk into a negotiation. For me, a high stakes negotiation. And I'd know all this theory. I'd think I'm going to walk in, I'm going to say this, they're going to say that, I'm going to say this, it's going to work out great. And as soon as I walk in the door, it all flies out the window, and I forgot everything, and it's as if I was starting from scratch. And over the years, I did learn how to do things, but it's from experience. Not long after business school is when I met you.
Yes.
Just under 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I learned feed forward, know but however. And these were practices that I could do. You said, do this, do this, do this. And
Simple practices.
Yeah, really simple. Like it took like 5 minutes to explain what it was.
Right.
And I've been doing it, not daily, but regularly for the rest of my life.
Good.
And each time I do it, I learn more and more.
It's good.
And as I improve my leadership skills, first of all, one, I would go into a situation where feed forward would be useful. Not because I was like, well, let's use feed forward, but something would come up and I'd think, oh, I know how to do this. I've done this before. Now it's high stakes. I practiced when it was low stakes, and this works really well. You're nodding because this is what you do. You don't. It's not so important to analyze things and to memorize things. It's more important to do things.
And doing things is hard.
Yes.
Understanding things is easy. Doing things is hard.
Doing things is hard, although I have to say that doing feed forward the first time wasn't hard. Doing no but however, that was hard even the first time. So over the years, as I began coaching and teaching, I found myself going back to your exercises that were like, someone would say, I have a problem with my CEO. I don't know how to talk to this person. And I would say, I'll give you a practice that you can do, and do it with not your CEO, your spouse or coworkers or friends and family. And after a while, after you get good at it, do it with your CEO. And over the years, I would find more and more exercises that people would do, or that I would have people do on a simple scale, and then when the stakes were high, they would do it. And I was like, this is just like Marshall. And at one point, I sat down and I said, I have all these exercises. They're all in my head. And I put them all down, including feed forward, including no but however. And I saw that some of them could fit together pretty well. And they merged into a course. I found that I was like, with one-on-one coaching, I would give a lot of people the same exercises in the same order, yours among them. And then I started realizing I could do this as a course. And that emerged into me creating courses that students went through, and they would practice the skills of leadership. And because the exercises that I gave were based in theory, they would also learn the theory. And so one day, a couple of years ago, I emailed you, and I said, check out, one of the things I learned to do is to have people reflect on what they did.
Yeah, I love that. I thought it was great, the reflections people did.
Yeah, so I sent you these reflections. Actually, I'm curious, what were your thoughts of the reflections of this? You read reflections of students who had done your exercises in the context of doing a whole bunch of exercises.
Right.
These came about a third, halfway through yours. You've talked to a lot of people who've done your exercises. How did it look when they did them on what you read online compared to what experiences you see in person?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it because what happens is, what I really love about what you're doing is you're building an ongoing follow-up and ongoing practice. See, the problem with most leadership training to me is you go sit in a room. You sit in a room, you hear a lecture, and then you leave. And then there's an assumption that somehow your behavior is going to change. Most of leadership training is based on the assumption if people understand, they will do. There's a huge gap between understanding and doing. And in life, our problem isn't understanding, our problem is doing. I think most people understand what we want to do, we just don't do it. Well, what I love about what you're doing is it's practice and doing over and over and over again, and you're building in follow-up. If you look at all the research we did, our study leadership as a contact sport, 86,000 people. The results are clear. If you just go sit in a classroom and you don't go back, you don't do any follow-up, you don't do any practice, you don't get much better. On the other hand, if you talk to people, you follow up, you do practice, you get better. That's why I love what you're doing.
All right, so it's been 10 years that we've been in touch, and you've seen me develop and things like that.
I'm so impressed with what you've done over the last 10 years. What I'm really impressed about is, I said, you have a real focus on creating positive change, not just understanding theory. Creating real positive change that lasts over time. Almost no one does this. For example, if you go to almost any leading business school, they have all these programs to help people be better leaders. None of them actually do any follow-up or any research to show it works. They just sit in rooms, they listen to lectures, people leave, they may or may not do anything they discuss in the lectures. What I love about you is you're teaching people very practical tools that they can take back and use every day. Let me give you a good word for what you're doing, and I use it in my own teaching. When I teach people now, I said, this is not graduate school, it's trade school.
Vocational, yeah.
I'm not here to help you learn, I'm here to help you do. And as I've grown older, I tell people, I'd rather you leave our dialogue with one simple concept you actually execute than a laundry list of clever thoughts that you go, that was interesting, but a year from today, so nothing has changed. Well, the challenge in life is doing, so I love what you're doing because it's very focused on doing. It's practical. You're teaching people tools that they can remember and use. And I think you used the term muscle memory. It's like practice. You practice over and over and you get better and better. You mentioned the acting teacher. What was his name?
Stanislavski.
Yeah, I love that analogy of teaching people to practice. You know, you have to practice over and over and over again. And the great actor is not a great actor because they sit in a class. They actually have to go out and do it. Well, leadership is doing. You know, as I put my article, Leadership's Contact Sport, it's about doing. It's not about understanding theory. It's about actually practicing. So I love the concepts of what you're doing because they involve practical tools, take back, use, get better, and you can see the improvement.
Yeah, if I'm going to put some of that into where I came from, this is, you know, I took acting classes because I'd seen how much actors had developed the skills that so many leaders wish they had. I went to an Ivy League business school, and I came out and I still had to learn this stuff in the world. Meanwhile, these great actors, many of whom had dropped out of school, getting kicked out of school, they're tremendous at the skills that my school didn't even touch on.
Right.
So I decided, all right, I'm going to learn about this stuff. I'm going to learn how we teach acting.
Right.
Now, of course, actors don't necessarily know how to read a balance sheet, so there's other things too.
Right.
But and a friend of mine who was an actor said, you show me the best actor in a room, and I'll show you the one who works hardest.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you work hard to act? What do you, like, act hard? It's not like lifting weights.
Right.
Until I'd learned there's a structure to it. There's a, you know, we call it the method, or method acting, casually. And Stanislavski created the system.
Right.
And when I took the classes, I learned that if you give someone exercises that they can do, it's just like playing piano. If you do the scales a lot, you learn how to do it. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
And what I felt leaders needed, not all of them, but many, is a structure that they can put their passion and their efforts into, that if they do them, they will make progress.
Right.
And what I try to do is give people the ability that if you keep doing these exercises, you will learn. And you know, the first couple times they do them, just like no, but however, the first time you do it, you're like, this is really hard, this is really annoying, what's the point?
It is hard.
And then somehow, you do it for a week, and somehow you start realizing, I think differently, I listen differently, people respond differently.
Right.
And then you keep doing it for months and years, and you start realizing there's whole levels of communication going on that you didn't realize were there.
Right.
And I tried to create exercises. So some I created and didn't really work out.
Right.
Some I've refined and refined and refined. And it's amazing how doing things is so much more effective than just watching someone at the board talk about stuff.
Right. Experiential learning.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Practicing, rehearsing.
Right.
It's amazing how people, it seems so simple and seems something you do, and yet you learn something inside yourself. There's a lot of emotional growth. Actually, do you see that a lot? How does that, now I'm just kind of curious, of how does that pan out when you work with clients directly? There's a lot of one-on-one, but there's a lot of, how do you make sure that they do stuff when you're not there?
Well, I follow up with people on a regular basis. So in my coaching, I don't get paid if they don't get better. So I have very little interest in working with people that have attitude problems or don't care. I only work with people that care. Now, in my follow-up, The key to their learning is not what they learn from me. What I teach people to learn is from everyone around them. So they get feedback, they pick important things to improve, they go back, they talk to people, they follow up on a regular basis, and they get better. Better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by everyone around them, and if they get better, I get paid, if they don't, it's all free. Well, what I do is I make sure that they are talking to people, that they are doing the follow-up, and then I give them ideas. In my coaching, it's very hyper efficient. The cost of my clients of hiring me is their time. I mean, a couple of my clients are $250 billion market cap companies, and what's their time worth? You know, a lot. But they don't need me to waste their time. So my coaching is very efficient. There's no arguing. Everything is either required, and the structure that's required is not an option. If they don't want to do it, I just refuse to work with them. After that, it's all feed forward. I give them ideas, and they learn to listen and follow up and try to get better.
Okay, so there's a big self-selection element to it.
Huge.
Your coaching gives them the opportunity. I believe my courses give people the opportunity for someone who's dedicated, disciplined,
Right.
will have the diligence
Right.
to go through and do it. If not, maybe not the most useful thing for them.
Everybody doesn't get better at everything. That's okay.